Welcome to a call to more abundant living. Sankofa, we're dealing with retrospection, introspection, and preconception. I have with me the celebrated author, playwright, former lecturer, Dr. Earl Lovelace. I'm honored that you would take the time out to join us to have this discussion. So, while we were waiting, we were discussing the whole dynamic of the society of the diaspora of African man in Trinidad and Tobago, and we established that there are two aspects. There's the group aspect and the individual aspect. Right. So do we really have a group aspect?
Well, I think we have a group because it is as a group that Africans were brought here. Mm-hmm. And as individuals that we sought to escape.
Oh, right.
You know? So we haven't worked out a system to deal with the group's escape, or the group's reparation, or the group's liberation.
All right.
You know, we enter as a group, but we trying to escape as individuals.
Right. So basically, the group has gone in many different directions in a bid for escaping the persecution and the negative situation that it found itself in. The history that the group holds, or that the group is responsible for, mm-hmm. That would form the basis for the individual to grow. How do we preserve?
Say that again.
The history. You know, like all the experiences that the group would have suffered, or the knowledge that the group would have in terms of doing simple things like household tasks, or as a society, how you would gather and discuss events. That group dynamic that usually forms the basis for the identity of the individual.
Right. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that there are what we call, you might say, a group culture that we share, mm-hmm. you know, with others of the group. But I think also is also almost a culture of Trinidad. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that it's limited to perhaps the group that we related to. Although when I think about it, you know, I think that it's kind of both. Mm-hmm. Both group as African group and Trinidad as a place that has been, you know, kind of developing this culture.
All right. So what, in terms of the retrospection aspect of, what aspects of our past would you say is relevant or most important for us to preserve in terms of going forward with?
Right. But I think we need to understand all of it, or as much of it as is possible to understand. And I think that if we understand it, we would kind of understand too that people have really not done so badly, that they have done fairly well, and they have fought quite strenuously, you know. Mm-hmm. I think that we will have a greater understanding of our people, if you want, and more respect.
Yes.
I think yes, because people have indeed struggled, and they've tried to do some things. And I think the more we understand of these things, the better we will understand them.
Right. So the individual in society, in spite of whatever condition they are in, they have survived, and they have done well in spite of their condition.
More than survived, I'm suggesting that they've done some things.
Yeah, right. They preserve culture. They've created arts. They've done
Right.
They have done some noteworthy things.
Right. They've also escaped.
Yes.
In some places,
successfully.
Some people got away, went to another island or another country and did fairly well,
Yes. And they have created. They have created arts and culture like the steel band calypso, the belly dance, and stuff like that. That are indigenous to Trinidad and Tobago.
Right. And we saw that, with Shadow, for example, the reel and the jig, which was his real offering to take from Tobago those aspects of the culture and present it in music.
Right. So he looked at his environment and he found in that environment what he needed to succeed or to propel himself to prominence.
And to express himself, to say this is from me, this is from us.
Yes. Right. And anybody who have heard any of Shadow's music knows that it was very moving lyrically and musically.
Right.
We are saying now that we can look at ourselves, and find what we need to move into the future.
Right. And this has now occurred, but to look at the Shadow music is an example of what we're talking about, because his music is telling us about where we are and who we are.
Yes.
And so we can learn a lot.
Yes. I know that he did a song called Poverty is Hell, which is one of my favorites out of his collection. And he talks about all the struggles that an average person has to go through. I don't know about somebody who has to go by the neighbor and ask for some rice and not get what he needs, and then finds himself, out running afoul of the law.
Let me see if I could turn this thing off.
All right. So while you do that, so this is Sankofa. We're talking about the.
See if this is off. Right, good. I got it off. Right.
Nice. Yeah. So little technical difficulty there. Yeah. So he was able to bring that to the fore. He made a plea to the whole population, and the thing is, this was a song that spoke about the condition of disadvantaged society, but it was a party song. It was people were partying and having a good time while listening to the lyrics that provoked them to think.
Right.
So he was able to cross some barriers there.
Right, and I think that he never allowed us to see things one-dimensionally.
Yes.
It wasn't only like the fetting is the only thing happening. But fetting is happening, but there are difficulties over there with family, with, how do you get things done, employment and a whole other stuff.
So you're saying that while you're partying, remember that...
Well, he's saying that there are many dimensions to the world and to your world.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm seeing it clearly now.
Yes.
Right? Yes. So we're looking at the individual. Let's say the colonizer comes in and meets you in a state of, I don't want to say bliss, but a state of comfort. And then he decides that your comfort is not appropriate, that the comfort that he will give you is better. So he comes to force his whole ideology on you, and there's a war, there's a battle between what you are accustomed to, what you know to be right, and what he's telling you should be. So you have that struggle.
Right? I think that in a kind of way, I don't want us to give the colonizer too much power. Right. I mean, not that they didn't have power, they certainly had power. But I think that what they had really eventually was the power of violence.
Right.
That they were able to organize the resources in such a way as to keep you want to enchain you, transport you, and to keep you imprisoned, right? And it was a big, big job.
Yeah.
It's a job that we're still doing long after it's gone.
Right.
And this is how we relate even to what we call delinquents. Because we had delinquents in enslavement. People they had what you call it here, a militia, you know, not to keep the peace, to keep people from running away, to keep people from escaping. So we've had a lot of these things, and I think that we need to give the people who were in opposition to these things, give them some more credit than we have been giving them so far.
So we at this point, we are looking at ourselves in the context of our knowledge and experience of the past. So we're looking at how today's society reacts to certain things or certain concepts. Let's look at the spiritual Baptist community having been prohibited from 1917 to 1951. And then after that prohibition was repealed, you still find that a lot of the negative stigmas and effect of that lingers on, even to this present day. And the whole concept of reparations comes to play because as a people, that prohibition stopped us from becoming or realizing our full potential. Yeah? Right? So even though we are making the case for reparations, we are recognizing that in spite of the prohibition, we have done well. We have survived the prohibition. We have continued as a faith. And we have made a significant contribution to the society of Trinidad and Tobago, affecting arts, culture, and even the spiritual community.
Right. I would say that we have fought well. I wouldn't say that we have necessarily done well, you know, which is a slightly different thing that we've done well. But you were saying something about reparation.
Yeah. I mean, it comes to play because we have to look at where would we have been if that prohibition was not leveled against us. Right. What would the spiritual Baptist community, or and by and large the African community of Trinidad and Tobago would have been if their leaders, because the prohibition shut down the spiritual Baptist community, which at the time were the leaders of the African community.
It didn't absolutely shut them down, you know. It
attempted to.
And it pushed them into other areas, you know, to go to the hills and to be a maroon kind of community, you know. And also, because I remember seeing the spiritual Baptists on the roadsides, you know, and I imagine the prohibition was probably still on, you know. Yeah.
Right. So we're talking about that, and we're talking about the whole concept of, you know, as a people moving into the future. So we come back to this group dynamic. As a group, what do we have that binds us together? What can we look at?
Fighting against oppression. That maybe is what...
That is the commonality that we have.
Probably, yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And having been aware of that for a long... And being aware that we have to struggle against it for a long time, you know.
All right, okay.
And but I'm still trying to get at something that he was saying about reparation.
No, but the whole concept of the prohibition ordinance being ultra vires the British Constitution, the people who gave us the prohibition ordinance violated their own constitution to do so. Because they had a Toleration Act which guaranteed the freedom of religious worship right? And religious observance. So to say that you're going to take a religious group and demonize them and prohibit them was against their constitution. So they violated their own constitution. So on that basis alone.
Well, okay, I think I know what I wanted to say about the reparation thing is that reparation is coming from a group, but if you're wounded by whatever they did, you have to find ways of repairing yourself. So that while you're looking at them, you can identify what is wrong with you. They're giving you reparation in terms of, let's say, money or whatever, will not cure you. You have to discover what has gone wrong over this period during which you have been oppressed, if you want, right? And when you understand that, you also have to become involved in your own repair.
Right.
And I think that we have been looking, I think that, and rightly so, to Britain, but I think that we had to look more to ourselves.
Okay.
Or at least looking to ourselves is a stage of reparation. Looking to ourselves, if somebody bounces you down, you know, let's say with a car or something, you're not only going to wait until they pay reparation to cure yourself. You're going to go to the doctor, you're going to find out what's wrong with you, etc. And I think that we had to discover what is wrong with us and what this experience has done to us so that we can begin to correct it.
All right. So we're looking at self-healing. We need to start healing ourselves and stop looking to somebody else to heal us. And from that point, once we discovered what we need to do to heal ourselves and we start healing ourselves, we start moving into the future.
Right. And we know we can talk to them.
Yeah.
We can talk to them and say, well, look, this is what happened to me. You know?
Yeah, because we can't go and say we have a case for reparations and we don't know why we need the reparations.
No, well, I wouldn't say so. I think I think that the case for reparation is clear.
Yes.
There's a case for reparation if we acknowledge that we are also human. The only way that they wouldn't have a case for reparation if they say black people not human, which they probably tried to say. But once you admit and accept the fact that we are also human as everybody else is, then you have to, within the human family, to make reparation.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So I know you have a bit of paper in front of you. Yeah. I had the privilege of reading a few lines from your upcoming book. Yes. You want to tell us a little bit about that? We have about.
Well, I think that I've been talking about this for so long now, you know, because what I've been talking about is reclaiming rebellion.
Reclaiming rebellion.
Yes, and essentially what I have been saying and what I am saying is that we have to reclaim rebellion as a way of engaging our community. We have to engage rebellion. We can't just accept ourselves as a domestic little group.
Yes.
You know, that is just nice and driving, you know.
Yeah. Well, in one of the lines I read in the book that he allowed me to read is that rebellion is not only negative, it is also a positive. It also says yes.
Yes.
You wanna,
I was saying that rebellion is not only what we say no to.
Yes.
Because the struggle is saying no, I'm not accepting this from you.
Yeah.
But to say no to something is to suggest that you have some idea of what you will be agreeable to.
Yes.
What you want. And so I think that yes, rebellion is both a no and a yes. And I am also, I'm not just talking about rebellion you know,
in a negative sense.
In a negative sense, but also the yes, what do we want? And I think as a society, we need to discover, for the entire society, what do we want? What do we want to achieve?
Yes.
You know?
We have a vision, a preconceived notion of where we see ourselves and what we are capable of.
Right. I think that there are lots of things that are possible, you know.
Right. So let's say, for instance, we see ourselves as a beacon for the Caribbean in terms of moral and forward thinking and development and arts and culture.
Right.
And we see that, and then we now make it a reality by doing rebelling against the things that are preventing it from happening.
Right.
So if there are certain things in place now,
or at least know what we achieve, what we want to see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm getting the gist of that. So in the unfolding of this whole reclaiming rebellion, what advice would you give to the community of Trinidad and Tobago, the spiritual Baptist community, the African community, to people in general?
Well, I think that we have to work out what we want. You know, I think also the idea of freedom is a good idea for us to want to both achieve and promote. The idea of people's freedom. And I'm not talking about black people alone, I'm talking about everybody's freedom. Because this is the experience that we've had. We have seen what unfreedom has done to our people. And we should really look to see what freedom can do. And we need to set out on the adventure of really making a real wonderful society.
Right.
You know, a society in which people could eat. I mean, we shouldn't be reluctant to engage or to try to create a society of plenty, a society where everybody has something, a society of creativity. I think that these are things that we have to think about in order to achieve them. I don't think we're going to achieve them by accident. Yeah. There's a lot that we can do.
All right. So we need to decide where we go, what we want in terms of have a common view of where we want to take Trinidad.
Or contending views. We could have. There don't have to be one view. You know, many views. You know.
Bring all the views together.
Right.
And work something out. Yeah. All right.
And we should also, there's another society in which, given the number of different people here, well, one, we had to settle a whole reparation thing with Africans. But given the number of people here, we should learn about each other.
Yes.
This society should be actively learning about each other.
Yes.
But in order to learn about each other in a kind of way, we have to respect each other.
Right.
And I think that one of the things that will signal our respect for each other would be reparation.
Yes. Because once we cover that hurdle or we pass that hurdle, there's no longer any disparity in the minds as to who is and who isn't.
Right.
Because this whole thing about the slavery, indentured labor, and going forward from that, it creates a kind of imbalance in the minds of people, because people see themselves as either superior or inferior.
Right.
And that affects how you carry yourself in public.
Right.
It affects how you interact with each other.
Right. Right. And as you were saying,
yeah. You know, this whole thing, how we treat each other. We're talking about forming a Trinidad and Tobago where we respect and honor each other, and we learn about each other and learn from each other.
Right.
So we have a truly integrated society.
And you can't do that unless you have respect. And you cannot have respect unless you settle matters.
Right.
We've been talking about African reparation and so on. Reparation might be presented to Africans, but it is not for Africans. Reparation is not an event for Africans. You know, it involves Africans, but it really involves the entire society, because what it would be saying is, look, I respect you, and I've done you something wrong, and let me kind of make some repair of it.
Yeah.
You know, now we could talk.
Yes. All right.
You know.
All right. Well, we have a few minutes, and before we go, I just want to talk about this book, Salt, that was written by Dr. Loveless 22 years ago, where he first discussed reparations, being one of the first persons in Trinidad and Tobago to see the need for some kind of dialogue or some kind of interaction where reparation was part of the whole conversation. And in this book, he really says that, you know, Trinidad and Tobago is not the kind of land where people could be enslaved. Yeah?
Right.
I got that a little bit from the little bit I read. I have to read the whole book to get the full story, and it's recommended reading for anybody out there to get yourself a copy of Salt. Well, I know that you have a whole list of books that you have written on various topics. So before we go, you have any final words you want to say to?
Well, I don't know. I have a final word. I hope, you know, there's
a message you want to give the nation.
I don't know. I don't know if I have any message. I think that we have. I think if we're talking about the Baptist, again, I think that we should. Well, I think that the Baptist is growing and developing and so on, you know, and I would want to commend them and also congratulate them for raising certain questions that we have not in the overall society raised.
Yes.
I think it's very important that, for example, the question of reparation is one, the question of the prohibition is another one, you know, and I think that we need to put them more and more center stage as part of ourselves, really.
Yes, well, you know, somebody told me once that the Baptists are the center pole around which Trinidad and Tobago can pull to regain what they have lost. So that is all the time we have today for a call to a more abundant living, Sankofa, retrospection, introspection, and preconception. So do you have a nice day until we meet again.
Right,
thank you,
thank
Dr.
you.
Lovely.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.